Ethan Shaw's secretary was pregnant. At our 9th wedding anniversary banquet, he brought her home. With a calm and indifferent tone, he told me, "You're picky with food. From now on, every single meal has to be different." He was a coward. He couldn't sleep without someone beside him. "Pack up and move into the guest room," he said. I didn't respond. I simply picked up the suitcase I had prepared in advance and walked steadily toward the front door. The butler tried to stop me, but Ethan sneered. "Let her go. She'll come crawling back in 3 days max." Everyone in the room laughed. Right in front of me, they bet $10 million that I wouldn't last the night. That I'd be back on my knees, like a pathetic little puppy, begging Ethan to let me in. But what they didn't know was that the Maybach he had arranged was already waiting outside. This time, I was really leaving. Just as I was about to step out of the villa, Ethan suddenly called out to me, "Claire, leave your jade bracelet behind. Rachel's been having nightmares lately." That bracelet was a keepsake from my parents. My eyes were red as I looked at him, but his face remained cold. "Name your price," he said. "How much was 9 years of marriage, cheap and filthy as dirt, really worth?" I didn't bother figuring it out. I just remembered what happened last time I refused to give Rachel the ski goggles. Ethan had stripped me naked and left me on the mountainside in the freezing cold. I took off the bracelet and handed it to Rachel. "I hope the baby in your belly comes into this world safe and sound," I said. At those words, Ethan actually gave me a sliver of dignity. "Claire, as long as you behave, my child is your child too." But right as he finished speaking, the bracelet slid off Rachel's wrist and shattered on the floor. Her leg got cut by the shards. In a panic, Ethan scooped her up in his arms and shouted for the butler to call the family doctor. The way he panicked made everyone around burst into laughter. Seeing it all unfold, I realized it wasn't just them who found it laughable. I did too. Last night, when I had a heart attack, Ethan had been on his way out with Rachel to watch the meteor shower. Even when I collapsed on the floor, foaming at the mouth, he stepped over me without blinking. Before I lost consciousness, I heard him tell the butler, "Disinfect the whole living room. Rachel's coming home tomorrow. I don't want her smelling anything foul." I gripped the handle of my suitcase tighter and turned to go. But Ethan grabbed my wrist with a cold expression. "Wait." Before I could say a word, he dragged me to my knees in front of Rachel. My knees scraped against the broken shards in the bathroom, staining the white floor with streaks of red. Seeing the blood, Ethan released me in disgust. "You broke her bracelet on purpose and got her hurt. Don't you think you owe her an apology?" Ever since I married Ethan, "I'm sorry" had become my default phrase. The soup was too bland? "I'm sorry." I was worried he might get sick from drinking? "I'm sorry." I texted him and disturbed his peace? "I'm sorry." I accidentally saw the hotel reservation message from Rachel? "Deeply sorry." I bit down so hard I tore the inside of my cheek. Then, without protest, I stood up and gave Rachel a deep, full 180-degree bow. After apologizing 3 times, I looked up at Ethan and asked quietly, "Was that enough?" He stared at the trembling corners of my mouth. His chest visibly rose and fell. "Claire, your old man's not here to see your pathetic act. Who are you putting on this disgusting show for?" Before I could respond, the family doctor arrived in a rush and brushed past me. Ethan led the doctor straight to Rachel's side. While his entire focus was on her, I took the chance to walk out the door as quickly as I could. Just outside the villa, I heard 2 soft honks. A silver sedan waited behind the iron gate, and I quickened my pace. But before the gate could even open, 2 bodyguards suddenly appeared and dragged me back inside. In the study, Ethan had me tied up tightly. He ordered someone to stab a thick needle, as thick as a thumb, into my arm. Through the half-open door, I heard the doctor speak to Ethan. "Mr. Shaw, although both your wife and Miss Rachel have Rh-negative blood, your wife has had a heart condition since childhood. Forcibly drawing blood could trigger acute shock. I think we should go to the hospital first," the doctor said. "Miss Rachel is anemic, and we need to start treatment for her. It's best not to pressure her any further." Ethan's voice was icy. "Your only job is to help Rachel recover. As for everything else, I'll decide what needs to be done." As I heard Ethan's footsteps approaching, I slowly closed my eyes. "Does it hurt?" he asked, for once with a rare hint of concern in his tone. Hang in there. It'll be over soon. I turned my head away, not bothering to reply. After drawing 800 milliliters of blood from my veins, my lips had turned purple. Just then, Rachel, lying in the master bedroom, suddenly began coughing. Without hesitation, Ethan pushed the doctor's hand away from the needle and demanded they draw double the amount. The doctor broke into a cold sweat, warning him that, if they kept drawing blood like this, I could die. Ethan hesitated for 2 seconds before saying, "Rachel is pregnant. Everything must come second to the needs of the mother." But I cut the doctor off. "Go ahead. Just finish drawing the blood, then let me leave." Looking at my pale, colorless face, Ethan's eyes burned with anger. His mouth opened like he wanted to yell, to ask me if I was done throwing this tantrum. Was I really going to leave home over something so trivial? Then Rachel let out a soft, delicate whimper. "Ethan?" And like always, he immediately turned to her and walked away. 2 days later, I woke up in the hospital after going into shock. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was Ethan, going over some documents. Our eyes met across the room. He stared at me for a long moment, then set down the papers and brought over a bowl of porridge. Without saying much, he lifted a spoon as if he meant to feed me. I shook my head. "I'll do it myself." He stayed silent as he watched me quietly finish half the bowl. Then he asked, "Are you feeling unwell anywhere?" I didn't answer his question. Instead I said, "Could you get me my phone?" Maybe it was the coldness in my voice, but he paused for several seconds before finally instructing the butler to bring it in. When I glanced at the screen, I saw dozens of missed calls. Ethan asked abruptly, "Who's been calling you?" He never used to care, never asked me anything. Now the question only made me feel a flicker of annoyance. "You don't know them," I replied. He undid the top button of his shirt and looked down at me with a frosty expression. "Claire, how long are you planning to throw this little diva act? I give you an inch and you want to take the whole damn mile." In the past, when Ethan got angry, I'd blame myself and try to soothe him. But now, I just pointed to the phone still vibrating on the nightstand and said, expressionless, "Rachel's calling you." Hearing that, a slight smirk curled his lips. He instinctively looked away and walked out into the hospital hallway. The moment he left, my phone rang again. I picked up. But before I could say anything, the voice on the other end was already anxiously asking, "Didn't we agree you'd come find me? Baby, did you change your mind?" "I didn't," I said softly. "Something unexpected happened." "Unexpected? What happened?" "No, this won't do. I'm coming back to the States myself," I interrupted his rambling. "Just give me a few more days. That's all I ask." When Ethan returned to the room, I had just ended the call. He noticed the faint smile still lingering on my lips, a kind of peace he hadn't seen on my face in a long time. He suddenly felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest. But he had just promised Rachel that he'd sing lullabies for her and the baby, so he didn't have time to ask who I'd been talking to. He assumed it was probably my cousin, the only person who still visited me after I married him, since my entire social circle had been reduced to female relatives. Without looking back, Ethan picked up his files and said coldly, "Claire, there's something I need to handle at work. I'll come back tomorrow." Tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that. He never came. But thanks to mutual friends, I received a steady stream of videos of Ethan and Rachel. He was taking her to banquets, dinners, acting like some giddy kid in love, introducing her to everyone like she was the center of his world. On the day I was discharged, Ethan posted a photo grid on social media. 9 images in a neat collage, sunset light casting a golden hue on a hot air balloon, where he held Rachel's flushed cheeks in both hands and kissed her passionately. I commented beneath it, "Wishing you both a beautiful baby and a lifelong love." 10 minutes later, Ethan called me. I didn't answer. Half an hour later, after handling the discharge paperwork alone, I saw Ethan and Rachel standing outside the obstetrics and gynecology department. I overheard the nurse at the front desk say to Rachel, "Mrs. Shaw, your husband really loves you. He's accompanied you every time you've come in. During your ultrasound, he was so worried you might get nauseous or catch a chill that he personally warmed the gel each time before we were allowed to apply it." The nearby pregnant women all looked over, clearly envious, instinctively placing their hands over their stomachs. I remembered that a child once existed inside me too, until a car accident caused a miscarriage from massive blood loss. That day I had called Ethan in tears on a video call, only to see Rachel lying completely naked in bed. Smiling into the camera, she had said, "Mrs. Shaw, your husband just lost a bet to me in a game, so I'm punishing him in bed now. Is there something urgent you need to talk to him about?" I didn't say anything. I hung up immediately. Not even a minute later, Ethan called me back himself. Holding a tearful, red-eyed Rachel in his arms, he had yelled at me for being petty and idiotic. "You're the kind of useless idiot who can't even keep her own baby. I honestly wonder if you're capable of doing anything right. Claire, maybe it'd be better if a truck just ran you over." I pulled myself out of the memory and was about to turn and leave when Ethan walked over with a cold expression. "What are you standing there for?" he said. Looking down, I instinctively tried to explain, "I wasn't following you. I just happened to run into you. Sorry if I bothered you." "Wait," Ethan called out with a frown just as Rachel's eyes flickered with smug satisfaction. She tightened her grip on Ethan's arm and smiled at me. "Mrs. Shaw, thank you so much for donating blood for me. Without you, I'd still be feeling dizzy." Then she turned to Ethan and said sweetly, "Ethan, can we ask her to come home with us? Please?" Ethan fondly tapped her little nose. "You're the sweetest pregnant angel in the world. Whatever you say goes." I had only planned to stop by the house to grab my luggage, so I didn't decline Rachel's invitation. Inside the spacious black car, it didn't take long before, just as Rachel wanted, I noticed a pair of lace panties, still damp, wedged in a corner of the seat. "Oh, why is this still here?" she gasped with feigned surprise. "Ethan, didn't you say you'd taken care of it already?" She bit her lip and nestled coyly into his chest, playfully hitting him as she giggled. Ethan chuckled softly, apologizing to her while subtly watching my reaction. But when he realized I wasn't angry at all, that same heavy feeling he'd had in the hospital came creeping back. "You've been glued to your phone since you got in the car," he said sharply. "Are you texting your cousin? Or someone else?" "Someone you don't know," I replied calmly, having just booked a plane ticket and now scrolling through the news. My answer only seemed to aggravate him more. Seizing a moment when I wasn't paying attention, he snatched my phone and demanded, "What's the password?" "My birthday." After 9 years of marriage, just 6 simple digits, he still failed to unlock my phone. The lock screen stayed stubbornly in place. The rest of the ride was silent. As soon as the car stopped, Ethan hurried to help Rachel, who was feeling sick from her pregnancy, into the master bedroom. Then he asked the chef to prepare all her favorite foods. When he came back downstairs and caught sight of my lonely figure walking toward the guest room, he paused for a second. Then he told the chef, "Make a couple of Claire's usual dishes too. Set 3 places." In the guest room, I opened my suitcase, only to find all of my clothes shredded. Luckily, the passport and documents I had hidden in the inner compartment were untouched. Just as I picked up my documents ready to leave, Rachel appeared in the doorway, blocking my exit. She held a small black bottle in her hand and looked me up and down with obvious disdain. "Well, Claire," she sneered, "you're tougher than I thought. After everything I've done, marching right into your home, humiliating you until you're the laughingstock of high society, and you still cling so desperately to the Shaw family. Not surprising, I guess. That old hag from the Shen family died last month. With your biggest supporter gone, you have no choice but to hang on to Ethan like he's your last lifeline." As Rachel kept talking, she suddenly remembered something and said with a laugh, "Oh, Claire, remember that day you were crying and begging Ethan to fly you in the helicopter to see your grandmother one last time before she passed? Do you know why he said no?" Her eyes sparkled with malice. "It's because he promised to take me to the beach that day to watch the sunset. Look, this picture on my phone, this kiss, was taken that exact evening." With a loud smack, I slapped the phone out of her hand. I couldn't take it anymore. I lunged forward and grabbed her by the throat. The black bottle Rachel had been holding slipped from her grasp. Almost immediately, I caught a sharp whiff of gasoline. In her panic, she accidentally ignited the gasoline pooled on the floor. Thick smoke billowed out. Flames exploded around us. Fresh out of the hospital, I was quickly overwhelmed by the smoke, drenched in sweat, and collapsed to the ground, weak and unable to move. That's when I heard Ethan shouting, "Claire!" The sound was followed by the maids yelling behind him, "Sir, it's too dangerous, you can't go in." As the security guards arrived with fire extinguishers and cleared the way, Ethan ignored all warnings and ran inside. But he hadn't realized Rachel was still in the house too. "Ethan, Rachel had just started to speak when Ethan, without a second thought, picked her up in his arms. He cast me a fleeting glance and turned around and walked away. Half an hour later, after calming Rachel down, Ethan searched every corner of the villa but couldn't find a single trace of me. That night, at the airport, I finished mailing off a package and boarded a flight to the UK, still coughing from the smoke. Right before the plane took off, I received a text from Ethan. "I don't have time to play hide and seek. Rachel's prenatal checkup is at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Come with her and have your lungs checked while you're at it." I didn't reply. I pulled out the SIM card and shut off the phone. From this moment on, Ethan Shaw, you and I are finished. The next day at the hospital, Rachel asked sweetly, "Ethan, is our baby okay?" Looking at her delicate, innocent expression, Ethan immediately pulled her into his arms and gently reassured her. "The doctor says the baby's fine. Yesterday's accident didn't affect anything." "That's such a relief," she let out a breath. "You've been so serious since we got here. I thought something might have happened." Her casual comment made Ethan pause. His mind, unbidden, flashed back to the look in my eyes, cold and distant, through the roaring flames. He frowned and opened his inbox again, frustrated that I still hadn't replied, not even once. In the past, no matter how coldly he treated me, I always responded right away. But now, I had learned to walk away in silence. He let out a bitter laugh to himself. Ethan carefully escorted Rachel out of the obstetrics department, stayed with her through lunch, and made sure she got home safely. Then, he headed to the office. No sooner had he stepped into his office than one of his male assistants reported, "Mr. Shaw, your father is back in the country. He's requested an emergency executive meeting in conference room 1. As he turned toward the meeting room, Ethan casually instructed, "Buy some of the latest designer handbags and trendy jewelry for Claire." The assistant responded quickly, "Yes, sir, I'll arrange it right away. Should I have them delivered to Miss Rachel's residence?" Ethan stopped walking and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Send them to the Shen family estate." In his mind, once I'd left the villa, the only place I could possibly go was back to my family home. A week later, late at night, Ethan finally returned home after finishing a major project. As soon as he stepped inside, he saw a graceful silhouette curled up on the living room sofa in a silk nightgown. "Claire," he began, "how many times have I told you? I always come home when I'm done with work. You don't have to." Then he stopped mid-sentence as he walked closer and saw that the woman on the sofa wasn't me, it was Rachel. Ethan froze, his voice turned cold. Rachel trembled under his sudden glare, her face both pitiful and aggrieved. "Ethan, Claire hasn't come home for days. I've sent her so many apology messages, but she hasn't responded to any of them. Maybe I should move out?" Seeing how easily Rachel's eyes welled up with tears, Ethan, caught somewhere between guilt and vanity, pulled her into a hug and kissed her forehead absent-mindedly. "Take care of your health, don't overthink things. Whether Claire likes it or not, from now on, this is your home, and the baby's too." Half an hour after making that promise, Ethan stood alone on the open-air balcony, wearing nothing but a bathrobe, smoking a cigarette. He had quit for a long time, but tonight, he didn't even know why he had picked it up again. That night, Ethan just couldn't resist the urge to smoke. As if possessed, he scrolled through his contacts. At the very bottom of the list, he saw my number. His thumb hovered over the call button for a long time. After finishing 2 cigarettes, he still didn't make the call. Instead, he sent a warning message. "Claire, tomorrow is my grandfather's 80th birthday celebration. I suggest you don't try anything dramatic at the party. Don't bring trouble to Rachel or the baby." On the day of the birthday banquet, Ethan arrived with Rachel on his arm, making a grand appearance as a loving couple. They were affectionate and inseparable, until the moment old Mr. Shaw entered. Only then did Ethan release Rachel's hand and walk over to his grandfather to help him greet the VIP guests. "Where's Claire? Didn't she come with you?" the old man asked, his tone pointed. For once, Ethan defended me, lips tightening as he replied, "She's been busy preparing a special gift for your birthday. I saw how exhausted she was, so I told her to rest for a bit and come later." 2 hours passed quickly. The banquet reached its grand finale, the gift presentation and birthday blessings segment. But I still hadn't shown up. Suppressing a growing unease, Ethan stepped into a quiet corner and called my number. "The number you have dialed." Undeterred, he called again. The result was the same, just a cold, mechanical tone. At that moment, a delivery man walked into the banquet hall, carrying 3 packages addressed to old Mr. Shaw. All eyes turned with curiosity as the old man smiled and opened the first gift. Inside was a breathtaking, hand-embroidered tapestry depicting 100 gods bestowing blessings. Its details so vivid, it was clear I had spent months stitching it myself. The old man's eyes welled up with emotion. Then he opened the second box, revealing a set of heirloom jewelry once gifted to me by Ethan's grandmother on our wedding day. As soon as the gems were unveiled, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone there understood the meaning. In elite circles, a woman returning the family heirlooms meant only one thing. Before old Mr. Shaw could recover, Ethan, face dark as thunder, clenched his fists and approached the third package. As I had anticipated, the man with a face of stone lifted the lid on my final gift. The box was large, but inside there were only 2 items: a divorce agreement and a medical report. Ethan froze. Divorce? I actually wanted a divorce? That couldn't be real. When old Mr. Shaw read what was written on the medical report, his face twisted in shock and fury. He slapped Ethan hard across the face in front of everyone. "You bastard! Look at what you've done. If I had known it would end like this, I never would have let you marry Claire. You've ruined her life." Ethan watched helplessly as his grandfather nearly collapsed from anger. The rest of the Shaw family rushed to support the old man and escort him out. When everyone had left, Ethan stood alone in the banquet hall, staring at the divorce papers in his hands. No one knew how much time passed before his expression finally shifted. Then, slowly, he tore the agreement into shreds. Ignoring Rachel's voice calling behind him, he grabbed a set of car keys from the driver and sped toward the Shen family estate. But when he arrived, the house was dark. No lights on, no sign of life. He lowered the window and sat in the car, parked at the gate. He smoked the entire night, one cigarette after another, until his throat burned and his voice turned hoarse, but the lights never came on. It wasn't until the 5th day after the banquet that Ethan finally learned I had left the country. Left the country? Just because she didn't want to see him? All he'd done was make the same mistake every man eventually makes. Why did that mean she could just decide to vanish from his life? She had no right. He wouldn't allow it. After considerable effort, Ethan managed to get my exact location overseas. Without going home, without packing a single thing, he left the office and booked the fastest available flight. As he was about to check in at the airport, Rachel appeared, her eyes brimming with tears. "Ethan, are you really gonna leave me and our baby?" Glancing at her, he saw her belly was already starting to show. He reached out and gently patted her head. "I've already arranged a new place for you to stay," Ethan said. "You'll move in today." At those words, Rachel's tears spilled instantly. "As long as I can be with you, I don't care if it's a dumpster, I'll live there happily. But our child is innocent." She clutched her belly, eyes glistening. "Ethan, if Claire truly loved you, she would treat our baby like her own. She wouldn't have ruined your grandfather's birthday and humiliated you and the Shaw family in front of all those people." Just as Rachel finished venting her grievances, Ethan's expression went cold. He interrupted her, his voice sharp. "What gives you the right to judge my wife?" "I used to think you were a thoughtful person, Rachel. But now I see. You've clearly forgotten your place." At that moment, airport staff handed him his boarding pass. Ethan looked down at Rachel, his tone colder than ever. "No matter how many children I have with other women, Claire will always be my one and only wife. And one more thing, when you leave the villa, take all your belongings with you. I don't want Claire coming home and getting upset because she sees anything that reminds her of you." Rachel stood there stunned, tears rolling down her cheeks. After a moment, she forced out a bitter laugh and cried after his retreating figure. "Ethan Shaw, I never thought you'd be even more naive than I am." You hurt Claire so deeply. Do you really think she'd ever come back? They say women understand women best, but Ethan, already walking away, paid her words no mind. He believed he knew his wife. For 9 years, no matter how angry Claire got, all it ever took was a sincere apology and a few gifts she liked, and she would forgive him. But this time, she had signed the divorce papers. A simple gift wouldn't be enough. After thinking long and hard, Ethan went straight to a local tattoo parlor the moment his flight landed. He took out an old sketch I'd sent him 5 years ago and handed it to the artist. "I'm in a hurry," he said. No anesthesia. 7 hours later, Ethan stepped out of the shop in a snow-white shirt, now stained with ink and blood. He purchased a lavish gift worth millions and 999 pure white roses. Having gone nearly 48 hours without sleep, Ethan didn't rest. He drove himself to a vineyard on the outskirts of London. As he sped down the highway, his mind ran through every possible version of how the encounter might go. No matter how he rehearsed it, the first thing he would say to me was always the same. "Claire, I missed you so much." And at last, in a foreign country, Ethan found me. But the moment he saw me, the bouquet fell from his hands. The evening sun cast a golden glow, and there I was, in the arms of another man, tall and handsome, with a peaceful smile on my face that Ethan had never seen before. We were teasing each other, playfully feeding one another sweet and tangy grapes fresh from the vine. Ethan didn't manage to say "I missed you so much." Instead, he stood there and asked dumbly, "Who is he?" Sensing my body tense up, Pei-Yun-chuan gently tightened his embrace. "You must be Ethan Shaw," he said calmly. "I've seen your wedding photo with Claire. Didn't expect you to be even uglier in person." I couldn't help but laugh as Pei-Yun-chuan teased me, breaking the tension. I covered my mouth to hide my smile, but Ethan saw it all. He felt as if someone had punched him in the chest, twice. His fists clenched so tightly his nails cut into his palms. "For your trouble traveling all this way," Pei-Yun-chuan said coolly. "I'll do the polite thing and introduce myself. I'm Pei-Yun-chuan. Claire's Pei-Yun-chuan." "I know who you are," Ethan sneered. "You're the son of the driver the Shen family adopted, the one who got kicked out by Claire's grandmother for stealing. A pathetic stray dog." Pei-Yun-chuan raised an eyebrow, clearly unbothered, but I frowned protectively. "Ethan," I said sharply, "Yanchuan isn't like what you're saying. Also, what are you doing here? This is private property. You came in without permission. That's illegal." My tone was clear. I wanted him gone. Ethan's face darkened. For a moment he completely forgot he was here to win me back, not to fight with me. "Claire, I came here myself to find you," he said, voice rising. "Stop throwing a tantrum and come home with me." "Home?" I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Did you hit your head in a car accident or something?" "We're divorced, Ethan. Didn't you see the divorce papers? My name was signed on them." Sure, the courier could have lost it, small chance, but not impossible. Just as I was thinking about printing another copy of the divorce papers and handing them to him myself, I heard Ethan shamelessly declare, "That ridiculous divorce agreement? I already tore it to pieces. Claire, I know what you're upset about. I've already taken care of everything with Rachel. I can promise you, she won't appear in my life again, not in the eyes of someone I love." Ethan took a step closer, his voice urgent, reaching out as if to touch the face he had been longing for day and night. But before his hand could reach me, I pushed him away. My tone was flat. "Mr. Shaw, when the Shen family was in trouble, only your family reached out to help. I married you out of gratitude, and for 9 years I've done my best to repay that debt. Now that Rachel is carrying your child, the Shaw family finally has an heir. I sincerely wish your little family nothing but peace and happiness." At those words, even someone as sharp as Ethan could no longer ignore the truth. I had made up my mind to leave him. Panic overtook him. "Why are you saying this, Claire? Are you telling me that these 9 years meant nothing more than paying off a debt? You think I'd believe such a pathetic lie?" Of course he wouldn't believe it. If I had never loved him, why did I beg for his kisses every morning before he left the house? Why did I cry myself sick outside the operating room when he had surgery, swollen-eyed and refusing to leave even when people tried to pull me away? I had loved him deeply, so deeply that anyone with eyes could see it. But what had he done in return? The more obedient and tolerant I became, the more recklessly he trampled my dignity. He forgot that a heart is made of flesh. Pain it enough, and it grows numb. Eventually, it stops sacrificing itself for someone who only knows how to hurt. I forced a smile, one uglier than tears. Ethan's eyes reddened as he stared at me. "Claire," he said hoarsely, "I didn't know Rachel's presence would hurt you this much. It was just one drunken night. I only took her in out of responsibility. Once she gives birth, I'll help her immigrate and send her away. Is that okay?" I shook my head firmly. "Ethan, I don't care what kind of relationship you and Rachel have. All you need to know is that I have a new life here. I'm not going back with you. So please, just leave." A new life? Ethan was already burning up from stress and exhaustion, having not slept in 2 days and still weak from blood loss after the tattoo. He didn't get the words out before the world spun around him, and everything went dark. When he came to, it was already past 11 p.m. A glass of water sat on the nightstand, probably left by a housekeeper. Misunderstanding the gesture, Ethan's heart filled with hope. Ignoring the pain in his body, he got up and searched the house for me. But when he climbed the spiral staircase to the rooftop terrace, sweating and staggering, what he saw hit him like a blade through the chest. There I was, wrapped in Pei Yanchuan's arms, kissing him, deeply, passionately. His heart twisted painfully, his lips lost all color. He lunged forward and grabbed Pei Yanchuan by the collar, his voice shaking with fury. "What are you doing to Claire?" At this point, Ethan could no longer pretend Pei Yanchuan was just some neighborly older brother. That lie was dead and buried. "Who gave you the right to touch my wife?" Pei Yanchuan chuckled. "Your wife, Ethan Shaw? Did you ever really treat Claire like your wife?" Before Ethan could argue back, Pei Yanchuan, fiery and blunt, swung a punch and landed it on Ethan's left cheek. "If Claire weren't so kind, I would have thrown scum like you out of this vineyard and fed you to the wild dogs. Listen carefully. Claire is my fiancée now. No matter how shamelessly you cling to her, she won't even spare you a glance." Hearing that, Ethan lowered the fist he'd been about to throw, stunned. He looked at me in disbelief. "Is that true?" he asked. "Claire, it hasn't even been a month since we split, and you're already engaged to someone else?" I didn't tell him the truth, that I had accepted Yanchuan's solemn proposal the very day I found out Rachel was pregnant through a video call from overseas. Instead, I leaned lazily into Yanchuan's broad shoulder and gave a faint smile. Ethan looked like his world had collapsed. His voice trembled. "Claire, are you insane? You're my wife. I never agreed to a divorce, and yet, you go running off with another man? How could you do this to me?" "Why not?" I tilted my head slightly, blinking innocently. "Is your agreement supposed to mean something to me?" "You think you're that important, Ethan?" I said. "Let me make this clear one last time. You mean absolutely nothing to me. We're over. Really over." Ethan stood there like a ghost, shattered and soulless. I turned away, lacing my fingers tightly through Pei Yanchuan's, and we resumed our quiet, moonlit conversation. No one knew when Ethan left the vineyard. No one cared. But he didn't return to the U.S. Instead, he bought a high-rise apartment near the vineyard, one with a clear view of the grape fields. Every day, his schedule was the same. Remote meetings with his corporate team back home, followed by a drive to the gates of the vineyard. Each time he brought flowers, never the same twice, or gifts I'd once mentioned but he had never given me. He waited outside, hoping to catch even a glimpse of me. I never acknowledged him. I never adjusted my schedule to avoid or meet him. 9 years of a painfully lopsided marriage had taught me one truth. A woman should never alter her life for a man. If I had work, I worked. If I had plans, I went out. The world was vast. My only responsibility was to myself, to live happy and free. As for Ethan, I assumed he only clung to me so desperately because old Mr. Shaw couldn't bear to see me go. The old man had probably ordered Ethan to win back my forgiveness. So I called him myself. I told old Mr. Shaw I already had a fiancé and a new life, and I asked him not to guilt Ethan into staying in London any longer. His efforts were pointless. But even after that phone call, Ethan kept showing up. For a whole month, without fail, he came to the vineyard gates, just to look at me through a car window from afar. The first one to snap wasn't me. It was Pei Yanchuan. One late night, we were returning from a party. As we pulled up, we spotted Ethan standing under a street lamp, holding the same white roses he brought every time. I had just stepped out of the car when, behind me, the sky erupted with tens of thousands of brilliant fireworks. Pei Yanchuan had once tortured himself by watching the video of Ethan proposing to me, over and over. Back then, young and naive, I'd been swept away by the lights and colors, dazzled into saying yes. Now, as I got distracted by the fireworks, Pei Yanchuan, already insecure and simmering, finally snapped. He stormed straight toward Ethan and tackled him into a brutal brawl. "You shameless bastard," he yelled. "Lurking around every day just hoping my fiancé might spare you a glance. I've never seen anyone so pathetic." "Oh, I'm pathetic," Ethan shot back. "What about you? I was with Claire for 9 years. If it weren't for that car accident that left her unable to have children, I never would have agreed to let Rachel keep the baby. You think she's yours now? Claire only accepted your proposal because she's angry. She thinks I cheated and stopped loving her. Once I calm her down, she'll dump you and come right back to me." Pei Yanchuan's laugh was ice cold. He punched Ethan so hard, he dropped to the ground. "When Claire lost our baby in that crash," he said through gritted teeth, "I dropped everything and came straight to her side. I didn't leave her once, not even to sleep. I held her hand through her recovery, never letting go." "And what did you do, Ethan? You said you were busy with work, but really, you flew off to Prague with Rachel, didn't you? Spent the whole trip whining and dining her while Claire was lying in a hospital bed." Despite my efforts to stop them, the two men kept fighting like they couldn't live without it. Just then, a police car rolled past. One of the officers locked eyes with Ethan, then immediately pulled over. Within moments, the three of us were escorted to a nearby hospital. I spent the whole ride fussing over Pei Yanchuan's injuries, but somehow I ended up being shoved into Ethan's room instead. That's when I finally realized this whole night had been orchestrated by Ethan. All the chaos, all the drama, just so he could steal a few minutes alone with me. I looked at him, half laughing. "Really? You went through all this just to trap me into talking to you?" Ethan, lying in the hospital bed with 2 cracked ribs, blushed with embarrassment. Then, voice hoarse, he looked me dead in the eye and said slowly, word by word, "Claire, I miss you. I miss you so much, I feel like I'm losing my mind." When the doctor came in to treat his injuries, I saw the tattoo on Ethan's chest, sun, moon, and stars. It was the design I made when I first got pregnant, representing a family of 3. I remembered what Ethan had said about it back then. He had scoffed at the moon and sneered, "A lowlife like you thinks you're the moon? Please." While Pei Yanchuan had briefly stepped out of the hospital room, Ethan walked straight up to me and grabbed my wrist tightly, refusing to let go no matter what I said. "Claire," he said, "I want to apologize to you face to face. I'm sorry, baby. Everything was my fault. I'll do whatever it takes to make it up to you, please. Just forgive me." Before I could respond, his phone suddenly rang. It was Rachel. Without hesitation, Ethan answered and put her on speaker. "Ethan, help me." Rachel screamed. "Ethan, Assistant Lou just barged into the apartment with some people. They took me to the hospital. The baby. They want to take our baby." Her voice was shrill, desperate, and full of panic, but Ethan didn't even blink. He just kept smiling softly at me. "Rachel, I already know it was you who drugged me that night to get pregnant. That child shouldn't have been conceived. And I know it was you who hired fake accounts to post rumors online about how my wife couldn't have children. All those posts have already been wiped clean." "The price for defaming my wife," he said calmly, "is that when the doctors perform your procedure later, they won't be using anesthesia. And after this, you'll never be able to have children again." Rachel went silent for several seconds, then her sobbing returned, louder, more frantic. "Mr. Shaw, I was out of my mind. I didn't mean to. Please, you can punish me however you want. Just don't hurt the baby." Her scream on the other end was so piercing and horrifying that I instinctively flinched. Seeing my expression shift, Ethan immediately ended the call and gently pressed my hand to his cheek. His face was pale. "Claire," he said, his voice low and shaky, "later tonight, I'll have the hospital send you the video of the surgery. Once you see it yourself, maybe you'll forgive me. Even just a little. Just a tiny bit is enough." I pulled my hand back like it was soiled and watched as his face fell. Then I said calmly, This hospital's psychiatric department has a great reputation. You should register for a visit as soon as possible. Ethan gave me a weak smile. Okay, I'll do whatever you say. What he didn't say out loud was that for the past 9 years, he had hurt me in more ways than he could count. But that didn't matter now. He had finally realized his mistakes, and he had already made up his mind. He would spend the rest of his life trying to make it right. On the third day of him holding on to that thought, Pei Yanchuan and I held a grand wedding. When Ethan got wind of it, he sped to the venue like a madman. But by the time he arrived, the gray-haired priest had just finished reading the vows. He stood there, stunned, as I, radiant in my white gown, smiled and said the 3 words to Pei Yanchuan, I do. No, Claire, you can't marry him. Ethan's heart seized. The pain was so intense it brought him to his knees on the crimson carpet. This man, always cold, always composed, now knelt like a dog left out in the rain, broken and desperate. His voice was ragged. Claire, baby, we don't have to get divorced. I never wanted to leave you. Please, don't marry someone else. I looked at him from above, my expression cold and unbothered. Ethan Shaw, I said. Out of respect for the congratulatory red envelope your grandfather sent me, I'll excuse your shameless interruption. But this wedding is between me and Yanchuan. You are not welcome here. Please leave. Go back to wherever you came from. Ethan couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears streamed down his face. Claire, I swear I know I was wrong, he choked out. Just give me one last chance. That's all I ask. I'll change, I promise you. I can't live without you. Since you left, I've thought about you every day. Every dream, every moment, I remember all the good things you ever did for me. I love you, Claire. I love you more than anyone ever could. Unable to restrain himself, he tore open his black shirt, pointing to the tattoo on his chest. Sun, moon, and stars. It was the same design I had drawn when I was pregnant, to represent the 3 of us as a family. You're my moon, he cried out. Claire, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Just don't leave me. But instead of being moved, I let out a soft laugh behind my hand. Ethan froze, like the world had just stopped turning. I met his hollow, devastated eyes and spoke calmly, without a flicker of emotion. Ethan Shaw, I've found someone who truly loves me. And someone I love back. His name is Pei Yanchuan. He's my husband now. As for you, even if every other man on this planet dropped dead, I still wouldn't get back together with you. He could only watch as I smiled and offered my hand, letting a blushing Pei Yanchuan slip a stunning 9-carat diamond ring onto my finger. Ethan felt as though every drop of blood in his body had turned to ice. Hand in hand, Pei Yanchuan and I walked past him. I was radiant, overflowing with happiness, as Yanchuan swept me into a bridal carry and headed toward the honeymoon car waiting outside the chapel. But just as we reached the steps, Ethan, left behind and spiraling, did something no one saw coming. He grabbed the silver cake-cutting knife off the table. Tears and blood filled his eyes as he screamed at me, "You're just afraid of getting hurt again. But it's okay, I'll show you my heart right now." And with that, Ethan drove the blade deep into his chest. His entire body convulsed with agony. See, Claire? My heart is always, always loving you. Claire, please just turn around. Look at my heart, just once. His screams, raw and pitiful, echoed behind me. But I didn't look back. I snuggled deeper into Pei Yanchuan's arms, smiling sweetly as I said, "Babe, that crazy man is so terrifying. Let's get out of here, quick." Yanchuan didn't hesitate. He carried me out of the chapel with long, confident strides and gently settled me into the passenger seat of the sports car. "My love," he whispered, "let's elope." "Okay," I said, eyes glowing as I leaned comfortably into his shoulder, smiling with ease as he floored the gas pedal and sped off with me toward a life of real happiness.